At 10:26 a.m. local time over the Sea of Azov, a Ukrainian Liutyi drone raced toward a high-value target that Russian forces could not afford to lose. The Russian Il-38 Newton's aircraft, the sole platform in the Black Sea region capable of detecting Ukraine's emerging naval threats, was in its sights. Satellite imagery from 6 hours earlier showed ground crews beginning to remove engine covers. The Il-38 Newtons was slated to be ready for takeoff by 1 p.m. This represented Ukraine's one window to eliminate it on the ground before it became airborne. Time was running out. Comment number 2 if you support Ukraine, number 3 if you support Russia, and number 4 if you love peace. By 10:31 a.m., the Liutyi crossed the Ukrainian coastline and descended to 164 feet above the gray winter sea surface. Ahead lay 174 miles of open water. At a cruising speed of 137 miles per hour, the overwater leg would take 76 minutes. 76 minutes of silence. The drone's composite airframe scattered radar energy in all directions except back toward Russian radar stations, much like tossing a handful of chaff rather than holding up a mirror. At 164 feet, Earth's curvature provided the rest of the cover. Radar waves travel in straight lines, but the planet does not cooperate. The drone flew below the radar horizon, invisible to Russian radars within a 124-mile radius. For more than an hour, it effectively ceased to exist on electronic scopes. Everything appeared routine until it made landfall again. At 11:47 a.m., as the Liutyi reached the eastern shore near Peresippatars, 43 miles from the target, only 19 minutes remained until arrival. The stealth phase had ended. Now Russia would have its say. Just 3 seconds after crossing the coast, silence shattered. From a mobile tower outside the village of Stut-Tarovskaya, what appeared to be standard telecom gear, a gray cylinder roughly the size of a coffee can house 4 omnidirectional microphones and a processor running classification algorithms. Clever technology. But cleverness works only if the adversary remains unaware. This was Russia's counter to radar-evading drones. You cannot spot what flies below the radar horizon, but you can hear it. The Liutyi's turbojet engine paid no heed to stealth. It generated 85 decibels at 328 feet, akin to a motorcycle on the highway. Compressor blades produced high-frequency shrieks from 4,000 to 8,000 Hz. Combustion added low-frequency rumbles from 200 to 500 Hz. In December's cold air, sound carried far. Dense cold air propagates acoustic energy more efficiently than warm air. The microphones picked up the first trace at 11:47 a.m. Signal strength registered 53 decibels, comparable to a coworker muttering in a break room, thinking no one hears. Weak, yet well above the 35 decibel rural winter morning background noise. Russian engineers had built microphones sensitive enough to capture it. Algorithms isolated the needle in the haystack. The processor ran a fast Fourier transform, breaking the incoming sound into discrete frequencies, like separating chords into individual notes. It matched the acoustic signature against a database. Compressor whine. Combustion growl. Characteristic ratios distinguished turbojet from turboprop. Classification returned in 1.3 seconds. UAV. Probability 87%. Bearing 245 degrees. A single microphone yields only direction, not range. The drone could be 1.2 miles or 6.2 miles away, like knowing someone shouts from the east, but not whether from next door or down the block. Russia, however, deployed more than 200 such sensors along the Krasnodar coast, spaced 1.9 to 3.1 miles apart. Within 8 seconds, 3 additional microphones reported, bearings 248, 251, and 243 degrees. Triangulation algorithms computed intersection points. Basic math executed thousands of times per second. A flight path emerged. Enemy UAV position, accurate to 164 feet, refreshed every 2 to 3 seconds. The Liutyi remained oblivious, and even if aware, indifferent. No acoustic warning system existed for a drone of this size. Its Skynode S flight computer displayed all systems nominal. Target coordinates locked. Tracking its every move was like shadowing a ghost unaware of its own demise. Still 42 miles to the target, 18 minutes out. Plenty of time if nothing went wrong. Microphones could shadow the Liutyi across Krasnodar, but could not engage. For that, Russia required another weapon. At 11:52 a.m., 5 minutes after acoustic detection, flight data streamed to a Tor M2 battery in Strovskaya, 11 miles southeast of the drone's position, well within engagement envelope. The Tor M2 served as Russia's short-range answer to such threats. 8 missiles on a tracked chassis, radar capable of tracking 48 targets simultaneously. In theory, the Liutyi was already doomed. The battery commander had precise coordinates from the acoustic grid. He slewed the fire control radar to the general sector and searched. Nothing. He possessed location data accurate to 164 feet. His radar could detect a bird at 15.5 miles, yet the screen showed empty sky. The issue was elevation angle. The Tor M2 fire control radar required at least 1.5 degrees above the horizon to acquire. Below that, ground clutter overwhelmed returns. Radar waves bounced off terrain, generating false echoes the processor could not distinguish from real targets. The system was optimized for aircraft and helicopters flying at hundreds of feet. No one had anticipated a drone at 98 feet. At 11 miles slant range, a 98-foot altitude yielded an elevation angle of just 0.1 degrees virtually on the horizon. The radar stared into ground clutter, and the Liutyi vanished within it. The battery commander calculated. To detect a target at 98 feet, it needed to be within 0.75 miles. At 112 miles per hour, the Liutyi would cover that in 24 seconds. He had one shot if the drone flew directly toward him. It did not. The Liutyi tracked northeast, crossing his front without closing. Acoustic updates streamed 10 miles, then 9.3 miles. The drone drew nearer, but geometry refused to improve. Its path would pass 2.5 miles north, never entering the narrow window where radar could lock. By 11:55 a.m., acoustic data placed it 7.5 miles out, northeast at 109 miles per hour. The Tor M2 radar still displayed frozen fields and clutter patterns. By 11:57 a.m., the target's track cleared his engagement zone entirely. Range opened. The drone slipped away. It had truly flown under the radar. Still 29 miles to the target. 12 minutes remaining. The Liutyi had evaded the acoustic net through terrain masking and beaten the Tor M2 through geometry and physics. But another hunter had pursued it since before landfall, one indifferent to elevation angles or radar horizons. 40 miles west, that asset had launched. A Geran 2 lifted off near Timok at 10:50 a.m., just 3 minutes after the Liutyi departed. Russian standing orders mandated armed interceptors airborne whenever satellite warnings flagged Ukrainian launch activity. A Liutyi rolling from Zaporizhia triggered the alert. The Geran 2 was aloft before the Ukrainian drone reached the coast. This was no standard Geran 2. On the upper fuselage, where delta wings met engine cowling, an anomaly appeared. A 9K-333 Verba missile in a modified launch tube, secured by aluminum brackets bolted to the airframe. Russia had converted a one-way attack drone into an airborne surface-to-air platform. It resembled taping a shotgun to a lawnmower, crude, improvised, and mad enough to work. The Geran 2 was an Iranian design license built in Russia, Cyrillic marked akin to the Shahed 136. Delta wings, 4-cylinder piston engine producing 50 horsepower. Cruise speed 115 miles per hour. Normal endurance over 4 hours. The armed variant differed. The Verba added 26 pounds, slashing flight time to 90 minutes. Hardware on the fuselage included 2 black boxes near the launcher, servos. One opened the seeker protective cover, the other triggered launch. Cables ran into the body, taped to the skin. This meant no simple button press. The operator sent commands via mesh network radio signals hopping between relay drones and ground stations. Each node forwarded data until it reached the platform. Command 1, open cover. Command 2, align aircraft. Command 3, fire. At 11:47 a.m., when the Liutyi made landfall, the Duran II had been airborne roughly 60 minutes. 30 minutes fuel remained, one missile, one target obscured in 1,312-foot acoustic uncertainty. The Duran II received acoustic track data. Enemy UAV bearing 095 degrees, 24 miles, heading northeast. The operator turned east, descended to 1,969 feet, and began search. Still 29 miles to target, 15 minutes fuel left. Time pressed both sides. But locating a drone at 98 feet amid irrigation canals differed from spotting aircraft in clear sky. The Verba seeker required thermal contrast, hot target against cold background. In open air, a 752 degrees Fahrenheit exhaust contrasted sharply with -5 degrees Fahrenheit air detectable at 3.7 miles. On the ground, everything changed. Frozen fields at 27 degrees Fahrenheit, plowed soil at 41 degrees Fahrenheit, a complex thermal mosaic the three-channel seeker had to parse from the target. The operator searched for 6 minutes. His camera showed frozen fields, bare trees, dark canal lines. Acoustic grid placed the target somewhere in a 1,312-foot ellipse, but somewhere was no firing solution. 12 minutes fuel left. The canal ahead ended. The Liutyi would climb. When it climbed, everything changed. At 11:59 a.m., the canal terminated. Open fields rose northeast. No more terrain cover. The Liutyi profile demanded minimal exposure. Fly low, fly fast, never silhouette against sky longer than seconds. Skynote S detected farm buildings 1.2 miles ahead. Metal roofs, thermal clutter. If the drone reached them before climbing, background heat might mask its signature. Almost successful. At 12:07 p.m., a ridge crossed the path. No detour. The drone pulled up to 262 feet, crested the ridge, and dove the far side. 3 seconds. Exhaust flared against December gray sky. The Duran II camera captured it perfectly. Bright point, rapid motion, clearly hot. The operator acted. Command 1. Open launcher cover. Servo activated. Cover retracted. 3-channel seeker scanned. Command 2. Align. The Duran II banked. Fuselage toward target. Seeker locked exhaust instantly. Strong UV spike, strong IR, mid-IR strong. All 3 matched engine profile. Not flare, not reflection. Legitimate target. Command 3. Fire. Solid rocket motor ignited. 20 grams acceleration. The Duran II shuddered as the missile departed. Operator fought to stabilize while the missile streaked toward target. Launch range 4.5 miles. Closing speed 2,789 feet per second. Intercept time 11 seconds, possibly less with capability. Verba employed proportional navigation. Missile flew not to current position but to predicted intercept, constantly adjusting angle to cut escape. Simple geometry, extremely difficult to defeat absent countermeasures. The Liutyi carried none. No decoys, no flares, no jamming. Built for range and payload, not survivability. Yet it possessed something else. As the Liutyi cleared the ridge, Skynote S executed next waypoint. Nose dropped, engine throttled, terrain following dive into distant streambed for next acoustic shadow. The drone did not evade the missile. It did not know the missile existed. Terrain masking, programmed in advance. Coincidence, but effective coincidence. Seeker maintained lock. All 3 channels tracked descending exhaust. Guidance commanded follow down, but now missile plunged earthward at 1,969 feet per second. Magnetic proximity fuse designed to detonate near metal structures. Proximity sensitivity created issues near ground. Frozen soil. Buried pipes. Iron-rich earth all generated weak magnetic signals. Fuse had to discriminate from valid target. 9 seconds post-launch, missile at 98 feet. Still diving. Seeker locked. 11 seconds, missile at 59 feet. Liutyi, at 82 feet, pulling up from dive. Fuse triggered not on drone, but on abandoned tractor in streambed. 3.3-pound warhead detonated on frozen ground. Shrapnel scattered across field. Liutyi, 131 feet ahead and climbing, buffeted by shockwave. No damage. The operator saw the blast. Wrong position, wrong angle, no debris fall, miss. One missile only, 9 minutes fuel. Target vanished. In Krasnodar, operator stared at screen. 11 months of intercepts, first miss. Someone would demand explanation. He had none. He elected pursuit. Engine advanced, camera tracked. Duran 2 could not overtake Liutyi, 35 km/h, slower, but could relay position to base defenses. Still 16 miles to target. Liutyi had survived acoustic detection via terrain masking and Verba via luck and programming. Ahead lay the hardest part, identifying one specific aircraft among dozens with AI never before viewing target from this angle. Liutyi must locate the Il-38 Newtons, ignore standard Il-38 parked 262 feet away, strike precisely so airburst warhead destroyed sensor suite, not merely airframe. Observe the two aircraft and the challenge became clear. Both featured 4 turboprop engines, high wings, long fuselage with similar gray paint. From 115 feet at slant angle, nearly identical. Difference resided atop forward fuselage. Il-38 Newtons carried NV9 Elant Pod, a 6.6-foot rectangular box on external mounts above cockpit. Elante stood for electronic intelligence. Pod housed passive receivers capturing radar and radio signals, classifying by frequency, pulse pattern, emitter type. Standard Il-38 lacked it. Pod marked the target. Wrong aircraft destroyed. Russia lost $8 million trainer. Correct one. Russia lost Sol Black Sea Subhunter. Neural network on Skynote S trained precisely for this discrimination. This was its operation. Ukrainian intelligence amassed thousands of images, satellite, reconnaissance, open source, commercial aviation. Each labeled, this Il-38 Newtons, this standard Il-38, this other. Algorithm learned patterns, not rigid rules. It learned Il-38 Newtons featured rectangle above cockpit absent in standard variants. It learned shape aspect ratio, shadows under varying sun angles, position relative to cockpit windows. In flight, camera fed frames to processor at 30 per second. Each underwent feature extraction. Algorithm identified edges, shapes, shadows, geometric relations. It located 4-engine aircraft first, then high wings, distinctive nose profile, then sought Elant Pod. System drew bounding boxes around candidates, measured pixel dimensions, compared aspect ratios to training data. Scored confidence by match to known examples. Final classification, Il-38 Newtons. Overall confidence, 94%. At 12:15 p.m., plus 8 seconds, encrypted satellite link transmitted short signal, strike approved, 14 seconds to impact. But at 12:15 p.m., plus 12 seconds, navigation computer detected uncharted obstacle, ground power unit beside target, 13-foot exhaust stack intruding approach corridor. Satellite imagery, 18 hours old. Someone moved equipment. AI recalculated, offset 3 degrees right, steeper descent. Adjustment induced 39-foot lateral error. At 12:15 p.m., plus 19 seconds, Il-38 Newtons filled camera frame. NV9 pod prominent. Classification confidence 97%. At 12:15 p.m. plus 21 seconds, radar altimeter read 20 feet above surface. Surface was Il-38 Newtons upper fuselage. Warhead behind Liutyi composite nose crafted precisely for this instant. Examine internal structure and conventional explosives proved inefficient. Standard bomb detonated on contact, inflicting localized damage at one point. On 131-foot aircraft, one section could destroy while critical systems survived. Ukrainian security required brain surgery. Airburst warhead contained central explosive core, surrounded by 2,000 cubic steel fragments, each edge about 0.3 inches, packed in polymer matrix. Nose radar altimeter pulsed downward, timed return to measure height. At 6 meters reading, fuse triggered but explosion not spherical. Explosive shaped. Curved surfaces directed blast energy downward, not outward. Fragments accelerated in focused cone toward target below. Velocity 5,906 feet per second. Time to cross 20 feet, 3.3 milliseconds. Impact pattern roughly 13 feet diameter. Fragment density 40 hits per square meter. Aircraft aluminum skin offered no resistance. At 12:15 p.m., plus 21 seconds, warhead detonated. Fragment cone struck slightly aft of intended aimpoint wing route rather than directly on ELINT pod. Obstacle avoidance shifted impact zone. But it mattered little. NV-9 pod absorbed hundreds of direct hits. Casing shattered. Antenna array shredded. Processing units destroyed. Forward pressurized compartment housing NV-4 mission computer vanished. NV-4, the brain-fusing radar tracks, MAD contacts, sono-B buoy data, electronic signals into single simultaneous 32 target picture obliterated in 3.3 milliseconds. Secondary impacts struck engine number 2. Oil line severed, fuel line ruptured, fire erupted within seconds. Il-38 Newtons did not explode spectacularly. It simply ceased functioning as an aircraft. NOLA radar remained, but no processor handled returns. MAD boom still trailed from tail, but no system read its data. Sono-B buoy receivers still operated, but no fusion integrated inputs. Comment number 2 if you support Ukraine. Number 3 if you support Russia. And number 4 if you love peace.